It's tough when we are unable to fully feel like we're making an impact we imagine ourselves making. Our next speaker is here to help us be able to spot when we're looking at the past to explain our future rather than to guide us to it. She is an award-winning 7-figure entrepreneur, a sought-after TEDx speaker coach, and a best-selling author. She's an avid snowboarder, comedian, and in her spare time, she's raising 2 kids and a husband. Please welcome our next amazing speaker, Georgia Vanderbilt.
So who here has ever made a mistake? Everyone. Well, I don't mean the kind of mistake that Alexa can help you with, like, hey Alexa, turn off the kitchen lights. I mean the kind of mistake that you don't share with your friends and family. And you definitely don't post it on social media. My biggest mistake landed me naked in a shoebox. And I thought up here would be the perfect place to share it with you. I was living on the West Coast, and I was dating a boy who was still living with his grandma. We were hanging out one afternoon, and his grandma left. She left, and we were free. And we started to get, we do have a child in here, a little cozy. And as we were getting cozier, he pulled out his Polaroid camera and he asked me to take a few photos. And you know that your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that does your cognitive thinking, doesn't actually fully develop until you're about 25. And I was 18, so I had an excuse. And I said, okay. So we took some fun little photos, and at the very end of everything, he took those 6 Polaroid photos and he walked over to his closet. And he opened the door and he reached way, way up high. And he pulled down his shoebox. And he opened the top, threw the pictures in, closed the shoebox, and put them way, way up. And if you couldn't count, I'm kind of fun-sized. I couldn't reach that shoebox. And for the next few weeks, that shoebox haunted me. I wanted to know what was in it and why was I in it. And after a few weeks, he left town for a few days. And I recruited one of my best girlfriends. She was the right height for the mission. And we went on over. And we knocked on the door. And his grandma said, oh, sweetheart, he's not home. And I said, that's okay. I just need to get something out of his room. She said, well, go on that. So we headed on back. And my girlfriend opened the door and she reached way, way up. And she pulled down his shoebox and handed it to me. And I opened it up, and sure enough, there I was, right on top of an entire shoebox full of other women's cozy photos. So I took my 6 photos, closed the shoebox, put it back up, and we left. And I realized that I was kind of being pulled by somebody else. But it really wasn't until a few weeks after that. I was talking to one of my girlfriends. She knew him. I was telling her all about the story, all about the shoebox, all about the Polaroid camera. And she asked me a question that I will remember for the rest of my life. She said, did you happen to see my photos in there and take them out too? And I realized that other people have a very big pull on us. You see, it's important for us to be in tune with who we are. You know, about 800 years ago, a little over 800 years ago now, we created this compass called a magnetic compass. And it points north and it points south. And then we base where we're going off of those poles. You can actually change the direction of a compass with a magnet. Just take the magnet and you can move the direction the needle points in. And I was being pulled by somebody else's magnet. We do have an internal compass as well. It's called our time compass. I call it our time compass. And it's our inner guidance system. It's that feeling inside of you that pulls you in the direction that you feel called to go. You know, it's kind of like It works really well with your intuition. They're kind of like coworkers, and when they get together, they get a lot of stuff done. Where your needle points is very important. And the best way to work with it is when we slow it down. And we stop it from moving all over the place. And the best way to slow that compass needle down is with meditation. Mr. Rogers said it best when he said, the best part of a book is that quiet, silent space in between the paragraphs, because it allows you that space to process what you've just read and prepare for what you're about to read. And that's what meditation does. It allows you that time and that space to process what you're going through and what you're headed into. Meditation is key. I have been meditating now for about 7 years. So I've done over 2,500 guided meditations every morning. But when I very first started meditating, I really wasn't that good at it. But it always felt very natural to ask. So in my meditation, I would always ask for things. But at that point in time, I did have a 2 and a 3-year-old. And if you guys have ever been around a 2-year-old, hung out with a 2-year-old, felt like you were acting like a 2-year-old, I felt like I needed to continually ask for patience. And every morning, you guys were probably there with me if you did have a 2-year-old. You guys were probably going, please, please. Mine looked like a beg. It was like, please, please give me patience. But it looked like this. And quite ironically, I always got what I asked for. I always had the opportunity to practice my patience. My children will tell you I sucked at it. It wasn't a skill of mine. But one day, I got it wrong. I asked for the wrong thing. I asked for a good day with my kids, and I actually got it. And it hit me. Oh my goodness, I have been asking for a skill I never wanted to utilize. I needed to ask for the result. And when I asked for the result, that was when magic happened. And I just life hacked the ask. All of a sudden, my relationship with my husband improved. My relationship with my kids, with our employees, with our friends and family skyrocketed. Because I learned how to ask for the result. Asking for the result is important, as well as feeling into the result. I have done over 2,500 meditations, and I have learned some very important things along the way. But feeling into what you want is one of the most important ways to connect back to your compass, to connect and communicate directly with your compass where you want it to point. You can't get somewhere that you're not ready for. And if you do, you won't recognize it. Let me explain this to you. Feeling is the key. You see, I had gone east. I had been hired to head east to Croatia to take a group of entrepreneurs and speakers and leaders through a speaking academy. So I flew on over, and I'd been there for about a month. And I had to fly home. And on the way home, I had several different legs I had to take on the airplane. And I was flying from one airport to another airport, and I was sitting in the middle of the plane. And as I'm sitting there, I heard this sound. And the flight attendant had just closed the curtain between first class and the back of the plane. I thought, I felt very separated at that moment. And then I thought, I was very optimistic about it. I thought, what would it feel like if I was sitting in first class? I was hanging out with Jackie. I went right into that moment. We were having fun. We were ordering things. We were buying stuff on Amazon. We were having a dance party. I took everyone in first class through a guided meditation. That was the best part. And then we landed in Portugal. And I got off the plane. And I had a very, very short layover to get over to my plane so that way we could fly back to New York. So I'm walking through the airport, I'm heading down there, I've got my gigantic backpack on, and all of a sudden, it hit me. You've been gone for a month. You still have 2 children. I'd only bought one of them a gift. I had to get the second one a gift. Right here, it had to be in Europe. This was my last time in Europe for the next few months. I had to get it now. You are parents. You have to, it's fair. It's got to be fair. So I'm walking through the airport going, I need an 8-year-old appropriate gift. 8-year-old appropriate, 8-year-old appropriate, 8-year-old appropriate. Nothing. And finally I saw it. It was bright green and yellow and red. A candy store. So I headed on into this candy store. And I'm standing there going, what in the world is this stuff? It was just cans, stacked cans. And I asked the girl behind the counter, I said, what is all this stuff? And another customer in there, he took the liberty and he said, this is the best store in the entire airport. It is 100% dedicated to Portuguese canned fish. What? What exactly is Portuguese canned fish? Okay, so I'm going along, I'm like, I don't have time. Sardines. It was the only word on the can that was English. And I thought, okay, perfect, what 8-year-old doesn't love sardines? So I stepped in line. And as I'm standing there, this man in front of me starts telling me all about this store, the history of the store, everything about Portuguese canned fish. Turns out, we were on the same flight together. So we book it on down to the plane. And we get on the plane, I'm right behind him, and he sits down right in first class in this gigantic pod. And I look at my phone, and I realize I have no idea where I'm supposed to sit. I thought, I don't know where I'm going to sit. When I had just left the airport, I had lost service. I didn't know. And he said, sit right there. And I was over 25, so my prefrontal cortex was fully developed. I knew I was going to end up in a shoebox. So I walked around, and I sat down. And over the next little bit, he ended up buying and reading my entire book. And I met a young lady sitting next to me who was having a hard time because she was going to go meet her dad in New York for the very first time. I took her on a guided meditation, and after a whole bunch of tears, she was excited to meet him because we had aligned her compass up. And the interesting thing about it was nobody said a thing. No one asked me, not one person asked me for my plane ticket, what seat I was supposed to be in, or my name. In fact, they brought me 2 meals and a toothbrush. That bed lay completely flat. I'm kind of fun-sized. You could have fit 2 of me in there. It was amazing. But what was it that got me there? It was feeling into it. You should write this phrase down. What would it feel like if? What would it feel like if? This phrase is very important. This phrase is key. Remember it and use it. This allows your compass the ability to line up and point you directly in the direction that you feel called to go. Things will line up for you perfectly when you feel into it. Now that we know how to slow it down, how to slow down that moving needle with meditation, and we know how to ask for clear directions, how is it that we step forward? Because like Charlotte was talking about, there is something that stops us from moving forward. And I learned this when I went south to Disneyland. Now, how does Disneyland teach you a lot? Well, you see, I had taken my whole family down to Disneyland, and we were sitting there, we were going on a ride called Star Tours. And it is a Star Wars themed ride. And you walk up, and as you're waiting in line, you're watching different videos. And we're watching this video about to get on the ride, and it is the C-3PO. C-3PO. My youngest son calls him 3PPO, so we'll just call him 3PPO, because that's how I know him. well, we're watching 3PPO up there on the screen, and he has gotten a wrench, and he is working on this contraption you're about to get in, on this spaceship. And he's working on it, and then he ends up getting trapped in the driver's seat. And then you get on the ride, and 3PPO now has to drive you all the way to this other terminal. So you're sitting there, and you launch into it, and you start hitting asteroids as you're going along, and you're getting bombed from the side, and everything's shaking, and it's really quite terrifying, and 3PPO is scared, so all of a sudden you're scared. And then you land in the next terminal. Well, we land in the next terminal, and you're supposed to get up and get off the ride. But my 6-year-old, he won't get off the ride. He is crying his eyes out. I'm like, dude, the line's not that long. I mean, it's not that bad. We don't even have to wait in this line again. It's okay. But he won't get off the ride. And the cast members come over, and it takes them a bit, but they finally get him off the ride. And when you leave, you have to walk up this ramp. And the ramp is just completely decorated with all this paraphernalia from Star Wars. And you're standing there, it's just gorgeous. Disneyland does a good job. Well, we're trying to leave, and my son is holding onto my leg. And I'm dragging this child at this point. He will not get off. And I look down, I'm like, buddy, come on, let's go. And he looks up at me and he goes, Mom, no, Mom, what planet are we on? And I realized it's fear. It's fear that holds us back. And when we can recognize that fear, then we can see it for what it actually is. And then we can step forward and we can walk past it. We do need to slow down. We do need to connect and ask for better directions. And then we also need to recognize where we are having that fear so we can move forward. The sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. But you point your compass needle in the direction that you feel called, you feel into it, and you move forward and you take those steps. And remember, never leave who you are in someone else's shoebox. Thank you.